Serious. Redditors who have been clinically dead and then revived resuscitated. What did dying feel like? How it changed your life? Did you see anything well passed on? So let me preface this by saying I'm immunocompromised and that's why things went bad fast. Few years ago I got an abscess in my lower back and about 4 hours after I started showing symptoms, fever, side inflammation, pain, etc., I started going septic while waiting in the ER. Just started really feeling like shit. After being admitted and already started on some hardcore broad-spectrum antibiotics, I just wasn't getting better. In fact, I was getting worse, and I felt awful and it hurt so badly, but nothing showing up on CAT, MRI, or X-ray to suggest an abscess. So they thought it was a skin infection. About 3 days in, packed with ice bags, my temp was 104.7 and my organs were starting to shut down. It was weird because I went from feeling the most miserable I've ever felt to peace, calm, pain-free, and quiet. I couldn't hear anything. Like I had just been put in a soundproof room. I could still see my wife, my mom, and siblings and they started panicking. I didn't know at the time, but my heart was going into a weird rhythm or something along those lines. I just closed my eyes like I was just gonna take a nap. Remember just feeling like I've had a good life. And only being sad I was leaving my wife behind, only been married 3 years at this point. Remember seeing almost like a foggy haze, like you see in movies where they're by the docks early morning and being told not yet. By a figure in said fog. Woke up a couple hours later and apparently they got me back and also gave me emergency surgery as the surgeon had a hunch where the abscess was even though charts didn't show anything. Spent an entire month in the hospital recovering. Bandage changes were a bitch because it was so deep. Thanks to that surgeon and rest of the staff I'm still here today. Was in a bad car accident 3 weeks after high school and died in the operating room 7 times in total. All I can say is I felt pain, a lot of pain, and as I got colder the pain eased and not the physical, the mental pain too, only to wake in extreme agony. How are you doing now? Permanent brain damage that leads to a lot of issues other than that, not too bad. When I was 14, I was swimming in the Great Barrier Reef in Australia. I got stung by a box jellyfish and was legally dead for 5 minutes. I was revived. It was like a dream. My dad got stung by a box jelly. Said it was the worst pain he's experienced. Tried to surf back to shore but lost consciousness. Another surfer saw him struggling and pulled him to shore. I never want to meet one of those things. When I was 6 I got pretty sick. I remember lying on my grandmother's sofa and listening to my parents and grandparents talking over coffee in the kitchen. Then they began to sound farther and farther away, like down a long tunnel. When I turned away I felt real weird and noticed I was on the ceiling. Looking down I could see myself on the sofa and I started calling for help. Everything went black. Then, I saw a real bright light. It was the lights on the ceiling of the room in the ER. They had just dunked me in an ice bath. I had spiked a fever over 104 headache section years ago. I was given an epidural and was awake for the procedure but felt nothing neck down. My son was born and was healthy but ruptured my uterus due to previous scar tissue. The black curtain began to fall over my vision and I felt coldness creeping in. I had a suffocating sensation even though I was on oxygen. I woke hours later intubated and my chest was sore as hell. Apparently my blood pressure dropped and my heart stopped. I was revived and shocked. I didn't remember anything during my unconsciousness, but I definitely knew I was dying during the blackout. It sounds crazy, but I felt calm and relaxed. It wasn't scary, but maybe because it wasn't my time to go. I was in a critical condition from hypertension back in October due to an exceedingly rare undiagnosed kidney disease. I'd had headaches for months, but wrote them off as needing new glasses or stress from work. The day I was admitted to hospital my BP was 200/140. For comparison, a healthy BP is 135/75 at its uppermost limit. The doctors told me afterwards I was about 30 minutes away from a stroke or heart attack. After I had an arterial line placed I needed to pee so I stood up to use a cup. I felt myself go woozy and I actually said to my mom I'm going. My BP bottomed out and I collapsed in the resuscitation room. All I could see was red. I was surrounded by warm red light and I could hear very clearly carousel music playing in the background. I remember having the concrete thought of I am dead. This is what it's like to die. I woke up thankfully and after a diagnosis and treatment from the best renal clinic in the world I'm back and better than ever. Really fucking scary though, wouldn't recommend it. When I was 7, I choked on a hot dog at a backyard BBQ. Because I was quietly sitting by myself in a corner, reading, nobody noticed me until I was already on the ground and blue. My uncle pretty much shoved his whole hand down my throat to get the food out, then did mouth to mouth and CPR for 2 minutes until I was conscious. I slipped in and out of consciousness for the whole ambulance ride to the hospital, and I remember feeling like the oxygen mask was choking me and fighting the EMTs who strapped me to the board. I spent the night in the hospital with a concussion. My grandmother fainted and hit her head when she thought I was gone, and they let us stay in a room together. She taught me how to play gin that night. Anyway, my strongest memory is feeling the world slip away from me. I was frozen, I knew that I was going to die, and I was too scared to move. My whole family was on the other side of the yard, and it felt like I was being pulled away from them into nothingness. I don't remember any bright lights or anything like that. What I remember most is a sudden burst of noise. It was total silence and then sudden screaming and crying. I think that was the scariest thing of all, to wake up to the sound of both my parents and even my super stoic grandfather just wailing. I was very religious as a kid, and I think it pushed me over into a zealotry that lasted pretty much until puberty, when I decided that I liked boys more than Jesus. I was afraid that if I so much as told a fib, I would die and not get to spend eternity in paradise with my family. We were Jehovah's Witnesses. And I was all up in everyone else's business, too, because I wanted to be sure we were all free of sin, so we could be together if one of us suddenly dropped dead or if Armageddon came. I'm atheist now, so obviously it didn't stick, but I was an insufferable Bible basher for my entire childhood, basically, as a direct result of a stupid piece of hot dog. I died when I was 15 years old. I went into cardiac arrest and was clinically dead for 15 minutes. Ventricular arrhythmia for no reason while in the car with my family. I just celebrated 6 years of being resuscitated 2 weeks ago. There was nothing after I died, unfortunately. When people ask, I don't normally relay this info, but the best way I can describe it is that dying will feel exactly like how you felt before you were born. Our last minute here is our last minute ever. So be kind to those around you and tell your loved ones how much you love them when you're given the opportunity to. Dying feels like nothing. You won't even realize you've died. It's changed my life immensely. My death is very much part of who I am and a major factor for how I treat other people and the limited tolerance of mistreatment I have from other people. I was hospitalized due to advanced stages of Wilson's disease. Originally told my symptoms were a viral infection. About a week after my initial doctor visit, my ex took me to the ED because I looked off. Jaundice does that to you. Collapsed in triage because my liver had completely failed and my kidneys were right behind it. I remember getting into the ED, saying hi to the person at the desk. And everything going completely black. But all the pain, nausea, everything was just gone. Like it was nothing, like falling asleep on your couch for a nap. I woke up what seemed like a short time later. Turned out it was actually a month and a half of 2 major surgeries and 4 heart restarts later. It was like no time had passed, like I was out then I was awake. It was peacefully terrifying hearing about it later, to be honest. Like peaceful because it didn't hurt per se, and terrifying because there was nothing. It was nothing. I overdosed. All I remember is right before and then waking up in the ambulance. It was just like sleeping. Same. I've overdosed and it's exactly like falling asleep. You don't remember the exact moment you fall into sleep, you sort of just drift into the darkness. Kinda the best way to go in my opinion, until they hit you with a Narcan and you freeze to death. Same. I remember doing a line and then boom. I'm jumping up off the ground with 5 paramedics surrounding me. I was actually a little disheartened that there was no bright light or familiar faces, voices. All that I experienced was waking up from black. I always questioned whether or not I had actually died and come back. Maybe someone with more knowledge or info on the subject of overdoses could elaborate. Like, did I actually die when I stopped breathing? Was my pulse gone too? Can you still technically be alive without breathing but while having a pulse? All these questions have plagued my mind since the incident happened 3 years ago. When I was really young, I went to a church party at a pastor's house, went off the diving board to look cool in front of big kids. Well, I couldn't swim, immediately sank. I kept breathing in water every time I surfaced. Then I remember feeling really tired and really calm. I looked towards the surface and saw it get further and further away. Everything grew dark, weird to say, but it was blissful. I felt nothing, then remember hacking my lungs out and nothing in between. Kids saw me and rushed over. I don't remember being pulled out of the mouth to mouth. All I remember is coughing violently. This bit is comforting. I lost my son to drowning last summer. He was 18. He just graduated high school, summa cum laude, and was going into the Navy. He took a cross-country trip with his best friend as a last hurrah. They were camping in Boise National Forest when my son tried to swim the river. He went under close to the other side. Multiple people tried to save him, but could not. I hope his last moments were as you describe, blissful. When I was 9, I had appendicitis, but every doctor I saw told my parents it was just the flu. After about 10 hours in the one doctor, thankfully, had a feeling it was something more and came into my room and pressed his fingers into my side. Within about 2 minutes of that my appendix burst and I just remember slipping into blackness. Not sure if I was ever declared clinically dead, I remember slipping in and out of consciousness as they wheeled me into surgery. I remember my surgeon hovering over me before they knocked me out, and that's about it. I was a brat as a kid, but after that I became a lot nicer. After having to spend I think 8 days in the hospital recovering, my classmates and friends and people from my team sports came to visit. I burst into tears every time I woke up to someone in my room because it made me realize people actually loved, cared about me. The scar on my stomach is a daily reminder of that, and I love it. I woke up during surgery once and drowned in my own blood. I was clinically dead for about 3 minutes. I didn't see, hear anything. When I woke up I was totally unaware that anything had happened. To me everything had gone as planned, and I had just woke up as planned. If it wasn't for the extra nurses, doctors around me, I'd have never known anything had gone wrong. This is why I don't believe in heaven or hell. When we die, we simply cease to be. The day that I got sober was the day I almost died. I have been an addict since I was 12, yes, it's possible, and that day was only a few months ago. I had received a dodgy dose from a new dealer, and it was laced with something, and I ended up having a severe odd. I was lucky in the fact that I'm still alive and without any noticeable brain damage. I was revived with medications and machines, and I don't really remember much from that day because I was really messed up, but it was scary. For me, everything felt like it was in slow motion, and there are a lot of gaps in the days and weeks following that incident as I was in a program for recovery. But something good came from that day. I got clean and I got sober. That really put into perspective that I'm not indestructible. I am not immune to death, and drugs are no longer have their same appeal that they used to have. I'm off the streets, I'm living in a house with 3 other people, I have genuine relationships, I'm in a different city where I have 0 connections with my old contacts. I have a great support system, I am working on getting a job, I successfully completed a 6-week program for substance abuse issues, and I'm happy. I hope this makes sense. I died on the operating table, I was awake, emergency C-section, an artery was severed, I bled out. I knew instinctively I was dying. I heard myself flatline. There was this strange sensation like a suction pulling me out of myself. I saw my body, lifeless, masked doctors and nurses rushing about, and then there was darkness. I was aware that I was no longer an individual, but part of something so much bigger. There was no fear or pain, I was at peace. I knew as if being told, but not in words, almost a collective knowledge that I had a choice to remain in that peace or to go back into my body. As soon as I thought of my children, I was pushed violently back into my body. It seemed smaller than before, all the fear and pain rushed back. I am very different, I have lost foreign language. I can only speak English now. Before I died I spoke German, Latin, and French, in addition to my native tongue. I had a photographic memory, also lost. I also spent over a year in physical therapy. My body and brain have never fully recovered. It's been over 2 decades since my experience. For a long time I thought my condition was punishment for rejecting heaven. I have suffered chronic illness, autoimmune disorder, crushing depression, but I am still here. There is more to this existence than I can understand. Love with your soul, in the grand scheme of things love is the only thing that matters. Love is stronger than death. Love is the reason I came back. I am kinder now, more patient. What I lost was so little compared to what I have gained. It took death to teach me how to live. Please let me know your thoughts about this subject down below in the comments section. Thanks for watching. Be safe.